So just to talk about the Anker Prime, I do like it. It works pretty good. Here I've got the top one. My phone is plugged in that I'm recording this on. Second one is my iPad, and I think it's at a high state of charge. I think it's actually at 80%, which is why it's not pulling very much. And then the bottom one is my keyboard for the iPad, and it only charges at about 1 or half a watt. It bounces between the two. So that's interesting. Maybe it's also nearly full. I'm not real sure why on that one. But I couldn't get my phone to pull any more than 25 watt, which I guess is normal for the phone. I don't really know. If anything, I wish it had more ports. It only has the 3 ports, and I'm using all 3 right now. I have another iPad that should be almost completely dead that I'm going to plug into it just to see what kind of wattage it gets. But I'm going to wait for everything else to finish first. But I just want to show this, show it's working great. I've run some power through it since I got it. I mean, probably about double what it was when I got it. So, I like it. Works pretty good. We'll try to put some more. My MacBook doesn't charge over 98 watts, and I think that's because all of my USB-C cables don't support more than 100 watts. So I ordered a 240 watt USB-C cable. This port 1 is supposed to be able to support up to 140 watt. And I'd like to see if I could push that with my MacBook. I don't know if it's capable. Haven't actually done the research to make sure, but it would be pretty cool if I could pull that off. One flaw that I have found with this that I don't like is the Bluetooth. And I think I may have fixed it because you can go on here to Bluetooth auto broadcast, flip this to on, and set your hours. So I have it doing it all hours of the day except for 1 minute before midnight, and then it turns right back on. The issue I was having is I don't ever turn it off. I use it throughout the day, and I leave it on charge throughout the day, and so it's always on. And I want to be able to connect to it from my phone. And there were a few instances where it was off, and I could still connect to it, but all of a sudden it stopped working. So I'm not real sure what happened there. But what I did notice is that I can do this, and this should leave it on. It says it uses 0.12, I guess that's milliwatt. I don't know. Not a whole lot of power draw. Not worried about it. I do want to leave that Bluetooth on so that I can access it at any time, which is just having this app and ability to do this here. I did speak with Anker about getting some more stuff. Obviously I'm paying for it. They did graciously offer a discount after I told them, my intention in making YouTube videos, and, I bought several items. And I obviously accepted. So, so far I like what I see, and it doesn't bother me to go ahead and take a discount on some of this stuff because I really like what I have so far, and I paid full price for this. So the things that I get in the future, if they work as good as this, it's going to be good. So stay tuned for more Anker stuff. I do also want to show how you can charge things while also charging the device. So we're pulling about 20 volt, 5 amp, almost 100 watt, charging the pack. But I'm also discharging 4 watts here going into my iPad, just topping it off, and then 1 watt for the keyboard. So that's pretty neat. Basically, it will charge itself back up because it's taking on way more than it's outputting at this point. I did try to hook it up to my MacBook, but the MacBook ended up getting full quicker than I expected, so it dropped below the 100 watts. So even though there was a deficit, it didn't last very long, and it was able to charge itself back up. So I don't want to make a video of nothing but app footage, but this app is so good. So let's talk about what we got plugged in right now. On the top port, we are charging an iPad, and that iPad is probably around 70%, I would say. Let me open it up here. I know you can't see it, but 74%. So it's doing pretty good still. The second port is charging my Steam Deck, and it is off, so I'll have to turn it on to look. Hopefully that doesn't change the voltage. Actually, I think it may have went up a little. It's at 65%, so it's got a little way to go. And then the bottom port is plugged into a GPS device. It just actually, I don't think it was, yeah, it says it's at 100%, but for some reason it's still pulling 4.2 watt. So it could probably be unplugged, to be perfectly honest. So now we're at 0. Now I do know that when a plug goes inactive, it usually goes gray, but the USB-A does not. You have to actually remove it from the device to make it go gray. You know, I say that. I have removed it from the device, and it still shows blue as if it's connected. So we're a little hot right now, 104 degrees Fahrenheit, 40 degrees Celsius. I want to let it cool down a little because this is not an EV and we're not looking for a hot temperature when we plug it into charge here. But my next test is going to be something I probably would never do with any device. I would never have done it with this device. However, in the manual, it says you can do this. What we're going to do is we're going to plug it in to 2 chargers at once and see how fast it can charge. It claims that it can charge up to 170 watts. And actually, I had read the 170 and I thought this was a 170 watt bank. It's actually a 250 watt bank. It can output 250 watts total across 3 ports. Oh, we're in the 10%. Just turned red. I'm going to go ahead and let it drain down, probably to dead. And then I'm going to let it cool down. I don't know how I'm going to monitor that temperature if it's dead. I'll just let it cool down for a little while, and then we'll try to plug it in with 2 power sources. I have 2 of the, I believe they're Ugreen 100 watt charging supplies. And I also have found another USB-C cable that is rated for 100 watts. So first port should be able to pull 100. Second port will probably pull 70. That's my guess. We'll see. We'll see how this works. It should be interesting because I didn't even know it could charge off of 2 sources at the same time. Technically, I was told that it could charge off of 3 sources at the same time, but I don't have any kind of USB-A input to charge it with. I'm gonna let this run dead and we'll see where it goes. All right, so I decided to pull it at 1% so that I can continue to monitor the temperature. It did go up to 105, so I'm going to let this set for about a half hour maybe. Get it under 100 and then we'll test it. So I do want to point out, despite it reading 104, it really isn't that warm to the touch. I mean, it has some heat to it, but nothing, you know, that makes you want to put it down or makes you feel like, you know, you have a problem. You know, I would compare it to the heat that the charging adapter, the A to Z charging adapter puts off. It obviously feels warm, but it doesn't feel hot to the point where you're worried about it melting or possibly burning your hand or anything like that. So while I wait on it to cool, I decided to go read some of the docs here about how this works. Recharge in under 43 minutes. It does say, this says maximum input of 140 watts. I guess that's per port. Down here it does mention to achieve max input of 170, use both USB-C ports and a high-powered charger. To protect the battery, the input cannot sustain 170 watts continuously. Normally it reaches 170 watts when the battery level is above 55%. That's interesting because I would think it would do 170 until 55%. They're saying that it won't reach 170 until it hits 55%. With an electric car, it's kind of the other way around. You get your high power down low, and then as it gets full, it slows down. So, but we'll see. This is kind of an illustration to show you can do 140 watts on either of those, or 65 on this one. 2-port charging, you can do 140 and 100. I think this is actually... See, it's a little confusing because it says charging, but you don't know if that means charging the device or charging your devices. But there's the breakdown. I think this is discharging the device, charging your other devices. I could be wrong, but we're going to test that theory because I do expect it. Honestly, I think it would do, if we're doing 170, I think it would do 100 on the top and 70 on the bottom. So I think this is for discharge, like charging your devices. But anyway, I do see that it can go up to 140 when charging. So perhaps, I think my cables and probably my chargers are not rated for more than 100. So that's why it's not going to do that. 170 fast recharge. So yeah, that's, I don't know, 250 multi-device fast charging. Max charging speed. But they do make a 20,000 mAh. And then I seen this one was 27. And I wanted to point out another thing that I read down here somewhere. They talked about, how the other one that I have claims that it's the highest available mAh to be on an airplane. And this one says that it's just under the requirement. So you can take it as well. I don't really understand the requirement. What if I had two of them? Like, now am I over the limit? Or does it matter just what's in each one? Let's check temperatures. 102. Oh, 98. I think we're good. Let's try it. All right. The moment of truth. I have my two cables here. The top one here should pull 100 watt. Get it plugged in. And then I'll go ahead and plug in the second one just to see what happens. It immediately jumped that top one to 65. It was above 65, and then now it's, okay, kind of slowly ramping. On the screen, oh yeah, it does show it up here too. 47 minutes to fully charged. So 134 watts input right now. Now it did say that it could reach 170 once it got to 55%. So let's just watch it. Also, in the temperatures, I want to mention, I was trying to look up the stats in the manual for this just to see if there was any indication I should be worried about it being 104. In one section on Google, I found it said to not use it above 104. 104 is the max. But on the Anker website, it mentioned as long as it's under 129, there's not a concern. So I'm probably going to stick to the 105. If it gets to 105, I'll probably chill a little bit. It is ramping up though, which this could very well, when you charge an electric car, of course we're talking about DC. When you charge an electric car, they match the voltage on DC. And so as it gets higher in percentage, for the first, maybe 10%, it will ramp up to a higher charging rate. At 20%, we are still pulling 146 watts pretty steady. I am watching that temperature, 102 right now. When it gets to 106, I'm going to pull the power because I really don't want to mess anything up. Okay, we did go up a little, 150 watt now. I don't want to mess anything up. I mean, I understand it's under warranty, but you never know. You might cause some sort of problem that doesn't show up right away, and then, then it's too late. So All right, for sake of cooking my battery, I'm going to go ahead and pull the power on this and let it cool for a little bit. We did make it to 31%. We're at 105. I do feel considerably more heat coming off of the device. So I'm going to go put it on an AC vent, let it get down to a reasonable temperature, and we'll continue this test. All right, so I laid it on the AC vent. We got it down to 89. I thought about it, and I was like, this sort of system, I mean, it's rated for 250 watts of output. There's probably going to be some acceptable rates of heat here, but for now, for the sake of not screwing something up, 105 was a good stopping point for me. So I'm actually using one of the cables here to charge my phone with because it started going a little low, but let me unplug that. Let's get them both plugged back in, and let's see if we can get 170 watt at 55%. There goes one, and there goes two. So we are at that point now where it says it can do 170 watt at 55% here in just a second. It has been slowly ramping up, now at 158, but I'm not seeing 170. Just like last time, we're going to let it go to 105 temperature, and then we're just going to let it chill for a little bit because I want to make sure we're getting optimal performance because the temperature is not too high. So I know a lot of you are probably screaming at me every time I unplug at 105 because it's probably got fail safes and it's not going to kill itself and blah, 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 blah. But I just want to, make sure that we're getting optimal performance by not overheating. I understand it's not going to blow up. It's not going to catch on fire. It's going to protect itself in that sense. But we are up to 161.8 now. The goal is 170, but we are at 105. So I'm going to take a little cool down break. I'm going to see if we can get everything back to normal as far as temperatures go. And then we'll come back and see if we can hit that 170 target. I do want to say the top of the device where the screen is actually considerably warm. I'm thinking higher than 105 personally. The rest of the device is nice and, room temperature-ish. But the top is where it's actually getting hot, where the ports are. So maybe it's the ports that are getting hot, not so much the battery. I don't know. I'm going to let it get back down to below 90, and we'll continue where we left off. All right, let's get started. Got it down to 89 again. This should be enough to get us fully charged. I want to plug in the one that I haven't tested just to make sure that it can achieve right at 98, 100 watts before I plug in the second one, just to make sure. I know the second one can achieve 100 watts. Oh yeah. 97, that's good enough for me. So it looks like our peak was going to be 165.8 for the entire charge. And it's holding that all the way up to the final 1%. We've got 0.5% left. Still holding 165.8. and it's finished. There is one more test I wanted to do, and this is more a test of my charger instead of the power bank, because I want to see if I have a 200 watt power charger. I don't know, I call it maybe a power brick. It claims it can do up to 200 watt, but it has 4 USB-C and 2 USB-A ports, and I don't know if it can or not. So I've plugged both of my 100 watt cables into it, and I've unplugged everything else. So we're going to see if can it pull, because we know with the last setup we could pull about 80 something per plug. So can it pull 80 something per plug? I've only drained it down a few percent here because it held its wattage at the higher percentage. And the A port looks like it's plugged in. There's nothing plugged into the A port. It's just where I was using it to drain it down there a minute ago. And it just hasn't rested yet. So let's plug it in and see what it does with both on the same charger. So yeah, both ports are pulling as expected. That second one dropped down all of a sudden for the, well, they're both dropping. I don't know what's happening there, but they are both giving some weird readings. 165.8. Second one has dropped again for an unknown reason. Both have dropped. So maybe this charger's not really capable of pulling that kind of power for both. Not real sure what the issue is there, but it seems the power is inconsistent. It does pull it, 165.8 once again, but that just randomly drops. Which again is the charger itself and not the power bank, but it's a good way to see how this works. So yeah, that's fluctuating like crazy. So, and obviously if I just pull one, the other should stay at around 97, 98 watts, because the power bank's capable of doing it. All right, well, that was interesting.